Hey guys, this is Scott, Vegas Horse Pools. I'm here with my buddy Gary. We're going to talk to you a little bit about college football, and it was another great weekend. Gary, what'd you think of last weekend?
Oh, absolute killer as far as the AP top 11 teams, right? The teams that took a bye this week, Texas, etc. Smart move by them picking this
Right.
week as the one to to take a break because it was mayhem. I know that Nashville was bananas, and then of course in Fayetteville, Arkansas, they are still calling the hogs, from what I understand.
Yeah, it was an amazing, amazing weekend. And people that listened last week, and I told you Nebraska was going to hang half 100, they scored two touchdowns. The thing is, I was 100% right on that game on the defensive side of the ball. The offense just could not get anything started. It was a very disappointing game. And of course, they won. So it's always good to be disappointed in a victory.
Oh
But
yes.
the Alabama game was amazing. Yeah, the whole weekend. Parity looks like it's coming back.
Oh,
So,
I mean, we are very similar numbers to 2007 right now. Bill Connolly from ESPN put out a tweet about that on, I think, Saturday, or it might have been yesterday morning, saying that at this point in the 2007 season, we had nine top 15 teams or whatever it was that had lost to unranked teams. At this point in this season, we've already had eight.
yeah, it's been crazy. Well, before we get started today, I want to talk about the playoffs. I talked you into releasing your playoffs last week. And of course, you know me well enough to know I'm going to play the entire playoffs
Oh,
in
yeah.
about 2 days because I could not wait to see who was going to win that. And there were some outstanding ball games that played. If you haven't watched them all, they're all on the YouTube channel. You can go back and watch any of them.
Now,
And
what exactly is the YouTube channel? Because I don't think that we give that out enough. When people want to find it, what do they go search for?
see, that's a funny thing. It's Roundtable Podcast. We were made a joke about 2.5 years ago with a group I'm involved in. We called it the Roundtable. And like idiots, we called the YouTube channel Roundtable Podcast, and it's almost impossible to find. The only way I would recommend somebody find it is to I put the links to the games in our tweets. Just
Perfect.
go to one of the games and then click on Roundtable Podcast. Because if you don't do it that way, I can't even find it. So it was a terrible name. It was a terrible joke. We never thought we were going to use the YouTube channel. Same thing happened with my Twitter name. I never expected to post. So I was trying to find a cool name, but I mean, it's just like anything that goes. Temporary is one day less than permanent, and that's kind of
You
where
got
I'm
that right.
living.
Yep, you got that right.
That's an old phone company motto. But I
I
want
love
to.
it.
But I don't know if anybody's had a chance to watch all these. We were actually Cameron, my buddy in Canada. We were actually playing some of these games at the same time, trying to find out who the winners were going to be. This was a lot of fun for us. Well, let me tell you what happened here.
Okay.
Penn State ends up winning, playing, and they end up playing Ohio State, which is kind of sort of what you would expect. Boise State ends up taking on Kansas State in that second round.
Okay.
Oregon taking on Alabama makes a whole lot of sense.
Yep.
Georgia taking on Miami. All of this makes sense. The next round, we get a little bit of chaos here. Kansas State beats Ohio State. I have a hard time with that one.
Yes.
But the virtual games are not perfect as we've seen. But I got to tell you, if you're a college football addict like you and I are, it's just one more taste, and I'm willing to do it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
The
For
the
sure.
here's I had two complaints about your playoffs. One of my complaints was Alabama had to end up playing Georgia in the semifinals. I think that's a national championship quality game.
Oh yeah.
And of course, they play again. Alabama wins. So your national championship game is Kansas State versus Alabama. And of course, Alabama was licking their chops and did whatever they wanted. So
Yep.
we crowned Alabama national champs on Friday. On Saturday, they go into Vanderbilt with a hangover for the national title.
Ah.
And I guess we all know what happened there.
Oh yes. Oh yes. That Diego Pavia is. I will never get caught giving points with him again. That is, I mean, my gosh, that kid is unbelievable. Like he's just the articles that I read afterwards. He was in the football facility 2 hours after the ball game, still looking for somebody to fight. Like he was still engaged. So I love that kid. He is. I will admit, I made a lot of money on him when he was at New Mexico State. I need to be on the Vandy bandwagon. Like I mean, it is unbelievable. They played the perfect ball game on Saturday. Just awesome to watch.
I think I want to do the playoffs again in about 3 weeks. I'd like to rerun it again because I enjoy college football so much that I'm willing to watch all the virtual games. And I hope you guys that are watching watch them too, because there was some nail biters in this playoff series. So there was only, I think, a couple of games that were actually non-competitive, but I highly recommend watching them. But let's talk about the Big Four this weekend. And you know, I always say, let's not bury the lead. Well, college football is actually canceled this Saturday. I don't know if anybody's told people. Nebraska has decided to take the weekend off to get ready to play Indiana.
So nothing else matters, right?
Nothing else matters. But let's talk about some minor games. And here's the first minor game I'd like to talk about. That's none other than Texas taking on Oklahoma. Now, in 1997, I lived in Dallas. First time I'd ever thought much about this game, and I worked downtown Dallas. And the weekend of that game, the Friday before that game, our boss said to us, he says, I want everybody leaving and going home at 3:00 because crazy stuff happens on Oklahoma, Texas weekend downtown Dallas. Because we had this big hotel across the street from the complex that we worked in. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but they were typical for throwing mattresses out the window. And he wanted us to be out of downtown. So that game changed a lot for me. That game is huge in Texas. Huge. So I see that I'm looking at Spank odds right now, and it looks like Texas is a 14 and a half point favorite. That is a tremendous amount of points. Gary, what do your numbers look like?
So I've got Texas by 14.91, and based on the last 4 weeks, I've got Texas by 16 points. Looking at power ratings, and remember this is neutral field, so power ratings, I've actually got Texas by 11. But here's what we've seen, right? In the past, we've seen, and this was 2 years ago, when Oklahoma is down, Texas lays it on. And I mean, they beat them 49-0 a couple of years ago. What is Hawkins going to look like? The freshman quarterback. What is this offense going to look like? Because this Oklahoma offense is bad, and they really didn't have a whole lot going against Auburn a couple of weeks ago. But they're number 129 in offensive success rate. They don't stay in standard downs. They don't make it easy on themselves. So their third down average is somewhere between 7 and 10 yards. I mean, it's always a struggle to be able to stay on the field for these guys. Their standard downs PPA, predicted points added, is number 115. Texas's defense is legit. Now, on the other side, Oklahoma's got a pretty good defense. The problem is their passing predicted points added allowed. Oklahoma's number 81. Texas is number 3. So I look at this. The number seems about right. But, man, if I had to side a certain way, I think Texas might blow their doors off in this game.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I got to tell you, in this big rivalry game, there's no way you could talk me giving up 14 points. No way.
I understand.
I would rather. This is the power of the bettor here. I can look at this game and say, I'll pass, and the bookie can't. So this is one of those ones where I'm taking Oklahoma or I'm staying out of it. Because this game is a huge, huge rivalry down there. And I fully admit what you said. Texas, when Oklahoma's down, they might lay the wood to them. But what if they don't on this one? I don't know. This one to me is a straight up pass.
No, it is. I will tell you this. This is a look ahead spot for Texas, which seems odd. How about this? It's a potential look ahead. Now they might be focused on Oklahoma, but they got Georgia next week. Do they feel like they can just walk over Oklahoma? Like that's where it gets a little questionable. I think the number's probably right on this.
Yeah, I think the number is right too. I'm just saying I wouldn't play it, but I will also say this about Texas. Texas gets a loss either this week or next week.
Yeah,
Whoever they look past, they're going to get beat by. So
yeah, you got that right.
if they look past Oklahoma to Georgia, which is probably what they'd be tempted to do, Oklahoma will beat them.
Yeah,
And if
no,
they
you're not wrong.
and if they get up really high for Oklahoma, which is kind of what I expect to have happen, Georgia's going to spank them. So they're in a situation where they can't win, as far as I'm concerned. I think this is a good one to lay off of. Here is this is the next game I wanted to talk about. Is pretty much the reason I've changed my mind about the conference realignment. This is basically a bowl game we're going to talk about next. This is Ohio State going on the road to play Oregon. This is an amazing game to me with having Oregon now in the Big Ten. The number on this is a -4 for Ohio State. Oregon's
That's actually gone up a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm seeing a little sprinkling to 4.5, but Oregon's a tough place to play. What do your numbers look like on Oregon game?
Up until a few weeks ago, Oregon was actually the favorite in the game of the year lines. I've got Ohio State by almost 9 points. I've got them by 8.7 here. And based on the last 4 weeks, I've got Ohio State by 12. Like, Ohio State has been just destroying people. And you would think, well, Ohio State hadn't played anybody, et cetera. Look, their current strength of schedule, they've played the number 109 strength of schedule. Ohio State has. Oregon has played the number 94 strength of schedule. So it's not like Ohio State has just played a significantly better schedule or Oregon's played a significantly better schedule. Both of them have played nobodies, and Ohio State is performing incredibly well. They are number 1 in PPA margin per play. I mean, it's unbelievable what they're doing. Their defense is number 1 in PPA per play allowed. They are number 3 in defense PPA allowed per play, or per drive. Excuse me. Like, they are incredibly efficient. They don't run a lot of plays. That's the biggest thing. They get off the field. Like, their defense and their offense are both incredibly efficient. As far as Oregon is concerned, they're number 108 in rushing explosiveness allowed. At Ohio State is number 4. You could see some pretty big plays out of Quinshon Judkins and TreVeyon Henderson. That could be a little bit tricky. You start looking at some of these other things. I'm not super high on Oregon right now in the spot. They're at home. Eugene is going to be bananas for a primetime game. So it depends on really what you make home field advantage for Oregon. I still kind of think Ohio State gets through that number because I think they're ready for this. I think they are primed for it.
Yeah, and I think the schedule makers didn't do Ohio State any favors here because I also agree with you. I think Ohio State is going to win. I think they're going to cover. And then they get the week off. And when you look at their schedule, with the week off, they've got Penn State coming up in 2 games.
Yep.
But they've got a monster before they got to play Penn State, and that's Nebraska. Nebraska's got them right where they want them. So I think that's a terrible thing that the schedule makers did to them with that hole in the schedule. They let them get prepared for Penn State, and Nebraska is going to sneak in the middle. So that's good there. I'm hoping for a big Ohio State win. I think they've got the horses to do it. I don't think there's much question. We need to get their confidence as high as possible for the week off.
That's a good idea.
And then we'll get Nebraska to come in and talk to them.
That's a good idea.
So we're in a perfect agreement on the Ohio State game, maybe for different reasons. So here, the next game, let's go down and let's talk about the SEC a little bit. We haven't talked about them yet.
That's a good idea.
We got Ole Miss taking on LSU. LSU stumbled out of the block, so we weren't thinking they were going to do very well this year. But now we might have a different ball game here. Everybody's ranked really high. The numbers on Spank Odds right now are only 3 for Ole Miss. The problem is they're going to go down and play LSU at home, and that's an impossible place to play.
Night game in Death Valley.
Yeah, there's almost no place worse to play than Death Valley. So 3-point favorite for Ole Miss. Tell me what your numbers look like here, because I think we're going to be on different sides.
So my numbers love Ole Miss in this spot. Love them. I mean, just ridiculous numbers. And And to be fair, like Ole Miss, the loss to Kentucky, really, the numbers would tell you that they should have won that ball game. I mean, it came down to a last minute, not a Hail Mary, but a 60 some odd yard pass on 4th and 7 or 4th and 9 or whatever it was from their own 17. I mean, it was just Kentucky doesn't typically hit those. It took some miracle stuff for Kentucky to be able to win that ball game. However, the Ole Miss offensive line didn't look great. Well, now you're going against an LSU team that doesn't have a great defensive line. I will tell you, since they lost Harold Perkins, the defense has actually performed better, which is a little surprising, right? Because he's an incredible athlete. But the defense has been better since he's been off the field. LSU had a bye week last week. Ole Miss has had to go through Kentucky, South Carolina. Now, I'll tell you, South Carolina was a 9.5-point dog last week, and it sat there all week long. And my numbers had Ole Miss by like 20-something. And Ole Miss ends up winning the game 27-3. So I'm inclined to trust the numbers a little bit. But, man, LSU coming off of a bye in Death Valley at night. Brian Kelly typically is pretty good in these spots. I think Ole Miss has the better overall team. If you start looking at like season-long stats, LSU is number 92 in predicted points added allowed per drive. It's not a good defense. Like they're number 119 in PPA allowed per pass. They're number 123 in passing success allowed. Ole Miss could certainly eat that up. I worry about this. I think that you want to take LSU at home, especially at night. But, man, these numbers all skew Ole Miss, and Ole Miss has got a bye week next week. I don't know. I'm staying away from it, but boy, I mean, the numbers are telling me, hey, you really need to look at Ole Miss in this spot.
Yeah, this is why we love college football, because we could argue for hours and hours and hours, and we probably would never be on the same side. LSU at home, and I'm getting points.
Yes.
I'm
with you.
I mean, if you had the Pittsburgh Steelers playing them, I would be thinking real hard about playing LSU, because playing at home in Death Valley, I mean, it's just too much for me. But, yeah, it's going to be a great game. I got a feeling we're going to get to see somebody in the playoffs. The winner of this probably will be in the playoffs for sure. At least
you're probably right. You're probably right.
This win will be enough of a win to get them in there. So I like this spot a lot. The fourth game that we have on our list today is a big, big letdown from the first three, because those first three I'm 100% going to watch. The fourth one, if it's available at the right time, I'll watch it. This is Florida taking on Tennessee. I thought the world of Tennessee after they beat Oklahoma, but then Arkansas decided to play them. I'm really confused. What's your numbers look like on this game? Spankoff has it at 15 and a half.
15 and a half. Yeah. So full season stats, I would have Tennessee favored by 21. Right now, power rating. Let's see, 38-27. You toss on, let's say, 3 points for home field event, maybe 3.5, and you're right at the number, right? Looking at 14.5, 15. So my power rating is right on the number. But stats-wise, it would have Tennessee favored. If you take just the last 4 weeks of stats, I would have Florida favored by 3.5 points. Like that. The Tennessee offense did not look good against Oklahoma. And if Oklahoma had any semblance of an offense, they probably would have won that game. If they had switched to Hawkins earlier, they probably would have won that game, right? Florida seems to have found something. Their defense is still not very good, and that's where this thing gets tricky for me. They did show up against UCF, but Tennessee is a bit of a different beast when it comes to offense as opposed to what Gus Malzahn does. Tennessee, and here's the thing, I felt like Nico was perfect for this Heupel offense, but he's not exactly been accurate with the ball. He's made some kind of boneheaded decisions the last couple of weeks. Now, granted, not freshman, but first-year starter on the road in places like Fayetteville and Norman, it's very difficult. Now he's going to be back at home against a Florida secondary that's not great. I think that's maybe putting it lightly, right? They're number 90 in PPA allowed per pass, number 75 in pass success allowed. I think Tennessee probably the right number because I think they got embarrassed last week. I worry about this one, though, because it feels like Florida might have found something last week. They were playing incredibly confidently, and Graham Mertz looks pretty good. I think that if the Tennessee defense can't get to him, then Florida might be able to put up some points here and make this a ball game. If James Pierce and that bunch, that defensive line for Tennessee, if they can get to the quarterback, it's going to be a long day for the Gators. I'm gonna stay away from it. But man, I would certainly lean Florida here just to stay within, because I think it could be about a 2-touchdown ball game, and you're looking at 15.5. Like, yeah, I think this could be tricky. What do you think on this one?
Yeah, this one's a really a problem for me because I don't know what to think at this point about Tennessee. So I just don't have an opinion on this one. This is one I would definitely stay away from. But I will say
against the better teams that Florida has played, they have looked like complete garbage, right? Yeah. Like Texas A&M, they got demolished, and against Miami, they got demolished. Yes. So, how does UCF compare to that? I don't know. They were coming out of a bye week last week. I mean, they looked really good this past week, so we'll see what they look like this going around.
Yeah, it'll be a good game. Like I said, I don't know if I'm going to be able to watch that because those first three are definitely 1, 2, and 3 on my list, especially since, everybody watching knows Nebraska has the weekend off. So I won't be having to schedule my whole day around that one. But that's it's going to be another great week. This is why we love college football, because there's chaos. But I don't know if you've been following the NFL Survivor contest here in Vegas. That is literally the top two teams again lose. I think we're down to less than 200 people left out of 14,000. And all you had to do pick the side. It's crazy. But this is why we love football. We're getting what we wanted. So we can't be disappointed.
You got that right.
I think that's about all we got for this week. Unless, why don't you tell us, Gary? I watch a couple of your shows. Why don't you plug the shows real quick so people know where to see you?
Oh, yeah. The easiest place to find me is at Gary WCE. You can see it on the screen here, but that's on Twitter. You'll find links to all of my stuff over there. But winningcureseverything.com is my YouTube channel. And then, of course, the BetUS College Football Show. Every Tuesday and Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, we have an absolute blast. We break down anywhere from 8 to 10 ball games per day. So we're hitting about, say, 16 to 20 per week over there. And we pick not only the biggest and most interesting games, but we also give you the games where we find the most value. So we've got our best bets that we do, along with which way we would lean on some of these bigger games, such as Ohio State, Oregon, etc. So a lot of fun over there with myself, Parker Fleming, and Kyle Hunter. And we do that 1 p.m. Eastern Time every Tuesday and Wednesday on the BetUS College Football Show.
Yeah, great show. And I guess I'll plug my other show. On Saturday at 4 o'clock Pacific Time, Adam Bjorn and I get together. We talk about the Survivor picks, the Millions picks, and then he does something that I think is amazing. He lets us go behind the curtain at Prime Sports. They've got a sports book in Ohio. They've got one in New Jersey. And he tells us what the book needs. Last week, he gave out 3 picks that the book needed, 3-0. I think he's given out picks every single week, and I don't think he's had a loser yet. There's a lot of value. Adam's a great guy. You could really learn a lot from him. I'd highly recommend you guys listen to that show. Again, it's at 4 o'clock Pacific Time, right after the Circa contest closed, so we can talk about the percentages. But great time. Hope to see you over there. Gary, I have a lot of fun doing this with you. I'm really pleased that I was able to talk you into doing this little show with me at Bet Bash. It was great getting to hang out with you there.
Oh, yes.
And I'm getting flooded with questions about Bet Bash East. Spanky, unfortunately, is going to have to wait 1 year. It's not going to be 2025. It's going to be 2026. I'm getting a lot of questions. Yeah, I was really hoping to get to go out to Atlantic City, but turns out he can't pull it off with everything that's going on. But I think I can understand
that there's a lot that goes into the one in Vegas. So I get it. I get it.
Well, people don't realize how big it is because he has staff working on that 12 months a year.
Yeah.
It's a big, big deal. And he was going to do a minor one on the East Coast, but there just was no way they could pull it off.
That makes sense. It makes sense. So everybody just needs to get to Vegas.
Get to Vegas. I'll see everybody in Bet Bash next year. Gary, let's sign out of here. I'll close it out. And good luck to everybody this weekend, and we got a lot of football to watch.